The restaurant was silent for a moment. A silence so sharp that you could hear the clink of a spoon dropped on a plate at the far end of the room. Moments earlier, the air had been filled with laughter, the clattering of dishes, and the chatter of wealthy businessmen and women. But now, all eyes were locked on one corner of the upscale Dubai restaurant where a young waitress stood, frozen, her shirt torn, her dignity shaken. And standing before her was none other than Khalid Al Mansour, the feared and respected Arab billionaire CEO whose temper was as legendary as his empire. Khalid had built a global business dynasty with an iron fist, a man admired for his sharp mind yet whispered about for his arrogance. His towering figure, perfectly tailored suit, and piercing gaze made even powerful men lower their heads. But tonight, his anger had burned so quickly that he didn't realize the gravity of what he had done. Until his hand, meant to snatch away a tray she had nearly spilled on him, accidentally ripped through the fabric of the young waitress's uniform. The waitress, her name was Amara, stood there, her breaths uneven, her eyes wide with humiliation. She was 24, a hard-working woman who had left her small hometown in Africa to support her family. Her job as a waitress in one of Dubai's most exclusive restaurants was not glamorous, but it was honest work. She endured the long hours, the dismissive looks from wealthy patrons, and the weight of homesickness. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. Because when Khalid's hand tore her shirt, something was revealed that no one expected. Etched across her shoulder and upper arm was a tattoo bold, intricate, and filled with history. It wasn't just a piece of ink, it was a symbol, a mark passed through generations in her family. The design told a story of resilience, of ancestors who had endured slavery and colonialism, of survival and dignity. And now, exposed in the middle of this glittering restaurant, that tattoo shone like a silent declaration. She was more than a waitress, more than a servant, she was a woman with a legacy. Some covered their mouths. Others leaned in closer. A group of businessmen whispered in Arabic, wondering if she was part of some secret society. But what shocked everyone most was Khalid's face. The billionaire who never flinched, who never showed emotion, suddenly froze. His sharp eyes widened, and for the first time in years, his expression was not anger but recognition. He knew that tattoo. It was a symbol he had seen before, years ago, when his father had taken him to Africa on a humanitarian mission. It was the mark of a tribe that had once saved his father's life during a time of conflict. A mark of courage. A mark of honor. The realization hit Khalid like a tidal wave. He had humiliated someone who carried the very symbol his family owed everything to. But Amara didn't know that. All she felt was humiliation. With trembling hands, she tried to cover herself, her eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall. She wanted to run, to disappear from the stares and whispers, but her legs felt rooted to the ground. And then, something extraordinary happened. Instead of shouting or storming out as many expected, Khalid slowly removed his designer jacket and, without a word, draped it gently over Amara's shoulders. The entire restaurant held its breath. This was the man known for lawsuits, for firing employees on the spot, for cutting billion-dollar deals without blinking. Yet here he was, humbly covering a waitress he had just wronged. "Forgive me," Khalid said, his deep voice trembling in a way no one had ever heard before. But forgiveness was not so simple. Over the next few weeks, Khalid found himself haunted by that moment. He tried to focus on his empire, on board meetings, private jets, and luxury parties, but Amara's eyes kept returning to him in memory. Her strength in that moment of shame, the way she stood tall even as whispers swirled around her, stirred something inside him. Something he thought he had buried long ago. For Amara, life did not get easier after the incident. Some colleagues mocked her behind her back, jealous of the attention. Others avoided her, fearing she might cause trouble. She was tempted to quit, but her family back home depended on the money she sent every month. Every night, she cried silently, but every morning, she forced herself to rise, to smile, to keep serving. The world didn't know, but Amara was fighting her own battles. She carried the weight of her family's struggles, her sick mother, her younger siblings who still had dreams of going to school, the debts that seemed endless. She wore her tattoo not just as a mark of history but as a reminder of her responsibility, to endure. Then one evening, Khalid returned to the restaurant. Everyone stiffened when they saw him, but his eyes searched only for her. Amara tried to avoid him, but he approached her quietly. "I want to speak to you," he said. She hesitated, her pride urging her to walk away, but something in his tone stopped her. It wasn't a command. It was, almost a plea. That night, in a quiet corner, Khalid told her the story of his father, of how a tribe in Africa had once sheltered him during a dangerous time. He showed her an old photograph of his father standing beside people who bore the same tattoo. "Your family, your people," Khalid said softly, "saved mine. Without them, I would not be here." Amara listened, her guarded heart slowly softening. She realized then that fate had brought them together, not just to replay old mistakes, but to heal wounds across generations. Their conversations grew over the weeks. Khalid learned about her struggles, her sacrifices, her unshakable resilience. And Amara, to her surprise, discovered that beneath the billionaire's armor was a man who carried his own scars of loneliness, of a childhood spent in the shadows of power, of trust betrayed too many times. But not everyone accepted their growing bond. Khalid's board of directors whispered that he was tarnishing his image. Customers at the restaurant spread gossip. Amara's co-workers accused her of chasing wealth. The world seemed eager to tear them apart. Yet through every challenge, they stood stronger. Amara refused to be ashamed of her tattoo, and Khalid refused to let her dignity be trampled again. Together, they faced the scrutiny, the doubts, and the prejudice. And then, in a bold move that shocked everyone, Khalid announced a new foundation in honor of the tribe that had saved his family and in honor of Amara's courage. He pledged millions to fund education, healthcare, and opportunities for underprivileged communities, including Amara's hometown. The press went wild. Some called it charity. Others called it redemption. But for Khalid, it was simply gratitude. As for Amara, she finally found her voice. She no longer walked with her head lowered. She no longer felt small in the presence of wealth. She stood tall, her tattoo now a badge of honor, not shame. And beside her stood a man who had once humiliated her but had now become her greatest ally. The story of the Arab billionaire and the black waitress spread far beyond the restaurant walls. It became a tale of humility, resilience, and the power of heritage. It reminded the world that behind wealth and status, behind uniforms and roles, we are all connected by humanity. And to this day, if you walk into that same restaurant, you will see a painting on the wall, a woman with a tattoo, standing proud, unbroken, unashamed. Sparkle's final call to action for YouTube video Sparkles. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments what lesson you took away from it. Should dignity always come before pride? Should the past guide the present? Your thoughts matter, and I'd love to hear them. And if you believe in kindness, compassion, and powerful stories that inspire change, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and most importantly, subscribe to my channel. Be kind always. Together, let's spread stories that remind us all to live with empathy and courage.